So, one moment while I adjust my camera a little bit. But basically, I'm going to be fucking around doing some dailies or some such shit. And while I'm doing that, I am going to be talking about the Electoral College, the basics of how the system works, because you really only need the very basics to understand some of the very serious flaws that the system has, all that shenanigans. So, the Electoral College is a system. You can look at the purpose and you can argue forever about it. It doesn't matter what the point of the Electoral College is, and it doesn't matter what it tries to do. What matters is, functionally speaking, what does it do and what kind of insecurities does it implement along the way. God damn it, I forgot to give myself a drink in advance. One moment. And I also forgot to put it in the fridge because I'm cool like that. So, let's see here. What was I saying? Okay, so the basics just when it comes to looking at systems, and this is a thing that I find very frustrating about people, is that people look at what something's supposed to do, and they say, hey, this thing's supposed to do a thing, so since it's supposed to do that, we'll just give it the benefit of the doubt and assume that it does that thing, right? And that's what we'll pay attention to, is the thing that this is supposed to do, not the thing that it's actually doing. Right? So, that's fun. Actually, a great example of a thing that is supposed to do one thing, but actually is a completely different thing, is if you are looking at a battleground in World of Warcraft, if you're looking at one of the 5-node ones, a 5-node battleground in World of Warcraft, a lot of people will try the conservative strategy of the safe strategy of basically trying to get 3 nodes and then hold those 3 nodes and defend them. And it seems at its core like that strategy is a conservative strategy. It's like, oh, well, we're assuming that we're not that overpowered. We're assuming we're relatively even. If we just do this very safe thing, we can do it. In actual point of fact, because of the way that the power projection works on the map, holding 3 distinct nodes and not actively attacking the other nodes means that at any given node, the enemy team can expend 15 troops at once, because they can send literally everyone to one node, and since you aren't attacking, you can't take the other nodes, right? Strategically speaking, the more defensive internally you are, the more aggressive the play actually is, because holding nodes is harder than assaulting nodes, because defense is reactive, not active. The attacker, decides, I'm going to expend X number of resources on this node where I already know they have a certain number of troops. Anyway, that's a random aside, but the basic gist is a lot of times people have a tendency to think that a system does a thing that it just simply doesn't do. Right? Electoral College has a lot of problems with it. It does not actually do any of the things that it's designed to do. But that's actually not what I want to talk about today. I don't want to talk about the principles of, like, the electoral aspect of the Electoral College, so much as I want to talk about the actual problems structurally with the security vulnerabilities in the system. Because a lot of people tend to think that the Electoral College works on autopilot, where it's like, okay, well, the Electoral College is basically just a number of points that are assigned to each state, and some states get more points than others, but at the end of the day, it's a point system, and the popular vote in each state matters, even if the popular vote doesn't matter on the countrywide level. So the countrywide popular vote doesn't matter, but the popular vote in the state matters. That has generally been the case in the sense that the popular vote in the state has historically, and does to a degree, currently legally dictate who wins the Electoral College votes in December, because the Electoral College has not voted yet. They don't vote until December. That'll become important later. Anyway, so the thing about the Electoral College is, though, that there's actually nothing binding about the Electoral College on a federal level. Each state decides their own rules for how they want to handle it. I just turned into a rock. Why did I just turn into a rock? Okay, well, that was interesting. So the Electoral College hasn't actually voted yet, and they haven't been chosen yet, as far as I'm aware. So there's a few points of failure in the Electoral College because there's multiple points where the Electoral College becomes relevant. So first of all, obviously you have the point scores for all the states, right? So just from a counting perspective, you don't have the ability to look at the number of votes in the country as a whole. But the next part of the chain is the state will pick a group of electors. Each state picks a group of electors that they are going to send over to basically elect the next president. Now, historically speaking, the way that has worked is they send the person, well, not even necessarily historically speaking. In recent history, the way that has generally worked is they send the person, they send a group of people who are telling them, and that have been selected by the parties, that they will be voting for the person, and for the party, rather, not even the person, who won the popular vote, right? So they're basically a representative of a group of people that, is relevant and has a direct financial interest in blah, 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 right? So they're unlikely, generally speaking. I don't know why this person thought it was a good idea to attack me. This person is clearly not strong enough to be attacking me. Maybe they are. I don't have any burst. Why would I have burst? Boop. Except I do have burst, apparently. Boop, 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 boop. This person is actually pretty tanky. It took me a while to get through their first... their first HP bar went down very fast, but... let's see, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Doesn't matter. I'm just talking about other shit. I wasn't expecting to be in PvP. I should probably have turned off PvP for a politics stream. So... the next thing that happens is the selection process. And the selection process is not legally bound, okay? So the people that are choosing who they are going to send could hypothetically send people that they intend to vote for Trump, even when they shouldn't. Or that they intend to vote for Biden, even when they shouldn't, in the many states that went red. So the ability for the people who are making the choices to send people that will not choose the thing that they are ostensibly supposed to do is important. So they have the ability to send the wrong set of electors. If they send the wrong set of electors, then I don't think those electors are even faithless electors. They're just, the state just decided that it didn't want to listen to the popular vote. And that's a thing that the states have the right to do. The states have the right to choose how they intend to send the electors. If they want to play rock, paper, scissors and decide that that's how the electors are going to be sent, the states have the individual right to do that. The states have a lot of individual rights in America, so don't get me wrong. They have a lot of rights. So in a state that is controlled almost completely by Republicans, but which happen to go Biden, that could be potentially dangerous. And I don't actually know which decision-making bodies are responsible for this whole process, because that part is actually legitimately complicated. But basic gist is that there are decision-making bodies that could potentially still just steal the election by saying, oh, well, we're just not going to vote for the popular vote winner in our state. They would have to do that in multiple states, and it would be like a whole thing, and then people would be like, oh no, how could you do that? That's bad, we're not going to vote for you next time. And then they say, yeah, but there's not going to be a vote next time because we just elected a fascist, so why would we give a shit? So under normal circumstances, right, there are some checks and balances to people doing that, because the people who would be making those decisions are elected officials, and elected officials, generally speaking, don't just want to shit on their base and say, you know what, we're not going to do what you wanted us to do. That's generally a bad decision politically, but politics is kind of over in America because the election this time is being called into question by like a major political party. Which means that basically, unless something major shifts and the balance of public opinion changes completely, somewhere around a fifth to a third of the United States population will not ever trust U.S. democracy ever again, period. because they believe that this election was legitimately stolen and that Biden committed fraud to obtain his so-called victory, which means that to them, electoral democracy is already over. You don't have electoral democracy. If they were correct, right? If they were correct, then they'd be absolutely correct that electoral democracy is just over because the person who actually won had it stolen from them. There's no evidence to indicate that. They're wrong. They're wrong. It's just a grift, right? It's just a attempt by, an ailing old man to not go bankrupt by shenanigans. Anyway, that's what's going on. It's a total grift. It's really sad that people don't see through it, but whatever. People don't see through it in part because there's very little opposition to it because the other side, America, the other side of the aisle is just like fucking useless. They have no ability to communicate anything, and they're just fucking skeezy scam artists. They're not as bad. They're not fascists, but they're still skeezy and dishonest, and they don't want a system where honesty makes things work. The problem is for them that they're going to basically lie their way to try to secure a sort of stupid liberal bullshittery nonsense where they pretend that everything's fine while Rome fucking burns all the way to their fucking mass graves as they get shot in the back of the head by the Nazis. Okay? Let's be clear here. This is a fascist coup. And fascists murder the people on the left. That's what they do. Now, that's not to say that these people are actually on the left. People like Chuck Schumer aren't on the left. But from an American perspective, they basically are. Anyway, so, basic gist. There are lawmakers and people who have the potential capacity to just send the wrong electors and send the electors that are going to vote for Trump anyway, and then they vote for Trump, and then everyone acts like they're shocked that America behaved exactly as it's designed, because almost nobody actually understands the Electoral College. Even the people who think they understand the Electoral College do not generally understand the Electoral College because it's very hard to find the nitty-gritty details because everyone just ignores the nitty-gritty details of how the system works because they're like, oh, well, the nitty-gritty details don't matter that much because you can simplify out all the intermediate steps, okay? Because, it's not like faithless electors have ever been a huge problem in the past. We've had them, and they could have called multiple elections. It would have been one faithless elector could have called several elections in the past. That's not a problem because it hasn't actually happened yet. So, now we get into faithless electors. So once the electors have been chosen, who are supposed to vote for a given candidate, they are bound to do that. I'm going to use bound in quotes. Each state has different standards in terms of how bound they are to actually do what they are told, right? So in some states, in the majority of states, there is absolutely nothing that actually binds them to do what they're told if you assume that they don't have to worry about being arrested afterward for committing a crime, right? Because the key thing is that if you win, if you're a faithless elector for the president, you might have committed a crime, but you just helped the president get in office. You're not going to jail. You're not going to... So the criminal penalties, assuming that there even are any, I don't even know that there are any, jail penalties or anything like that associated with them, but it's a state-by-state thing, and you have to look up each one individually. But I think the vast majority of states have either no restrictions on how the Electoral College people can vote at all, or the restrictions are not binding to the vote itself. Now, what do I mean by that? It might be illegal in many states for a faithless elector to vote for the wrong person. However, and this is very important, while it's illegal for them to do so, that just means that there are legal penalties for them doing it. In order for it to be binding to the election itself, they have to specifically ratify in their legal documentation that a faithless elector vote is not actually a legitimate vote. And basically, no one has that law in the books. Okay? There might be 10 states that have a law like that in the books. I don't even know if there are that many. Okay? A vote by a faithless elector is a binding vote, even if they are committing a crime when they do it. This is important because we've established that the Trump administration is perfectly comfortable having people commit crimes for them. And they're perfectly capable of doing crimes themselves, right? Faithless electors breaking the law by being faithless electors is not like new territory. So we have the capacity for the states, the people in charge of a given state, to basically just send the wrong set of electors, right? Which is on a state-by-state level possible, depending on who's in charge of the state when the election happens and who wins the electoral vote, right? It just depends on who's in charge, and you have individual people making these decisions that may or may not go horribly wrong. Then you have the electors themselves, and the electors themselves have the capacity to be faithless electors, right? So a faithless elector, they don't even need to want to be a faithless elector. You could blackmail someone into being a faithless elector. I think that's extremely unlikely, by the way. That kind of like high drama bullshittery is like TV show bullshit. That's not the kind of thing that people actually do in reality. There's much simpler ways. It's much easier to get the right person in the place that you need them to be than to blackmail the wrong person, right? That's not how blackmail generally works, right? So blackmail does exist, but in a large scale context, it's mostly talking about blackmailing your political allies into ensuring like mutually assured destruction kind of bullshittery, as opposed to like going for someone who's objectively not going to do the thing that you want, and then they're going to do it. Anyway, all that being said, the electoral college system leaves open multiple points of failure, and those points of failure will continue to stay open for quite a while. So there's this sort of like narrative that's going on right now in like the media and with like a lot of just like relieved liberals and a lot of leftists and, you know, fake leftists. And I've noticed this year that there's this whole like fucking, there's a slew of people who are talking heads online who their whole thing is pretending to be leftists when they're actually like fascists. Like, legitimately speaking, like that's like a whole thing. There's this whole community of basically fascists who pretend that they're socialists. And it's like, but you don't care about any of the things that socialists care about, and you are like literally protecting a fucking fascistic like coup when even Fox News isn't willing to go that far, because Fox News they are fucking neoliberal goddamn capitalists. They don't really want a fascist takeover because that's bad for business, okay? They want to be at the very edge of fascism. They never want to actually cross the boundary. They don't want the dictator to actually take power. I assume, right, based off of their behavior recently, that's my assumption, is that they want to be at the edge, and they're edging hard, right? But they don't want that release. They never want that dictatorial release. They are just edging. Anyway, it's a fetish for them. So the way that the election is going right now is honestly concerning for me. What am I doing? I don't have my bar showing. Alright, looks like I got my shit working? Question mark? Alright, yeah, we got our shit working. Alright. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with my abilities. It was like it was activating that I had pressed a button, but not what I was pressing. This is just horrifying. These people are just like standing around. I am a mass murderer, and that's kind of scary. Whoop. Whoop. So anyway, let's see here. So right now we've got a situation where we have someone who wants to be a dictator in power and who is acting like a dictator and is acting in basically the same way that you would expect, and is being largely successful right now. Like largely what's going on right now is kind of what he needs to happen. He needs for the left and the liberals to not pay attention and to just think that he's a joke, while he quietly replaces the military and the legal council of the president with loyalists who will support a coup, like a literal coup, which is what he's doing right now, and while he's galvanizing his base. Because his base actually believes him. His base believes that there is an actual, like, democratic fucking conspiracy going on. They believe that. And that's the thing that's the most scary, is you have his base, which have turned on Fox News because Fox News isn't towing the party line enough. And that's extremely dangerous. It is extremely dangerous for people to believe the words of Donald Trump over literally everyone else, including, like, other fucking, like, Republicans and shit, right? The other people that are ostensibly on their side are like, holy shit, no, this is not a thing. No, this is dangerous talk. Why are we talking like this? This is unacceptable. And at its core, it doesn't matter if they say that, because they're kind of saying that in a very milquetoast way right now. They're not digging into it. They're not saying, no, this is unacceptable, this is a coup. This is an attempt at a coup. And they're not saying that, which means that you have a very problematic relationship where the same people that have been telling these viewers that, like, the Democrats are part of some cabal of, like, pedophilic demon worshippers for years, which is, like, literally a thing that they signal on Fox News, though they don't actually say it outright. They just signal to it. They use dog whistles to signal to the QAnon people. If you don't know about QAnon, thank your lucky stars that you don't know about QAnon. It will destroy all faith you have in humanity and the ability of people to, like, have any sort of coherent thoughts in their goddamn heads. But the situation right now is not as bad as it could be. There is a degree of pushback right now from the people that need to be pushing back, which is to say people like Fox News and Republican politicians. There's a little bit of pushback from those people right now against Trump. But there's not a lot, and some of them are actually, like, going all in with it, which is bad. So things are not as good as they need to be for me to feel safe with the idea that, like, okay, well, we're probably not going to have a fascist coup. They're not doing that well, but they're not as bad as they could be. I actually see, this is the problem with me, right? I have a tendency, I write out these, like, long detailed essays. I wrote an essay like 4 months ago about basically this, talking about the strategy that Donald Trump was obviously using was that he was going to try and delegitimize the results of the election to the point where the United States military will not intervene. People think that you need to get the military on your side to win a coup, but you don't. You just need to get the military to not get involved. If the military doesn't get involved and you have all the power, you win. He controls the White House. So he just needs the military to not get involved, and he wins. But beyond that, the thing that's really terrifying, more than anything else, actually, is that from a purely legal perspective, if a few people, just a small number of people, commit some very, very minor crimes over the course of the next month, Donald Trump will be, as far as U.S. law is concerned, the legal president of the United States. The legal president-elect will be Donald Trump. Because the way the laws are designed, there's no protection against illegal activities when it comes to the Electoral College. And this is one of the reasons that the Electoral College needs to be abolished. Like, there's the sort of like voter compact thing. Is it what? I don't remember what it's called. It's a really long. It's like the national. So it's like Napaco Interco or something like that. It's a complicated thing, and there's this idea that would like fix the problem of the Electoral College. And it would help with some of the problems. It helps with the surface level problems. It helps with the problems that everyone is aware of, where it's like, oh, okay, so why is it that the Republican Party is never going to get the popular vote ever again? And you might think the reason that the Republicans aren't going to get the popular vote ever again is because like they're bad people or whatever reason you might have for believing on an essentialist level that there's something inherent about the Republican Party that makes it so that they're unpopular. But that's not the reason that they're never going to win the popular vote. The reason they're never going to win the popular vote is because they have no reason to actually adopt popular policies. Because their electoral strategy doesn't care about the popular vote. They only care about basically getting a very specific set of voters to have 20 times the electing power of everyone else and getting them. And if they get more people than that, that's fine. But the Republicans don't care about the rural fucking Californians who vote for them. They legitimately do not give a shit. They don't care because they don't get them anything. They get nothing out of those voters. What they care about is getting the they care about getting the people in the specific states that they have set their eyes on and ensuring that those states always have basically an electing majority. The ability to elect the president even though they don't actually have a popular vote. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is that they don't have to change that much as a party to get the popular vote on their side. That's the thing that's really funny, actually, is that because of the fact that they aren't really that dissimilar from the Democrats in terms of their actual policy positions, and the Democrats are so completely useless in terms of their ability to actually run an election, in terms of their ability to do anything. Let's be clear here. They don't have any good policies. Like, the Democrats are an obstructionist party that exists to prevent a left-wing party from actually forming in the United States. That is their purpose. The Democratic Party exists to prevent the creation of an actual left. In the same way that, like, sometimes corporations will create sort of, like, fake unions in order to prevent the establishment of a real union. That's what the Democratic Party is. It's basically a fake union. And they only care about really surface level issues, and they're very, very, very bad at politics. Because it turns out that they're actually, it's unpopular. Focusing on surface level bullshit is not popular, despite like what the whole like cancel culture bullshittery that the right wing tries to pretend is a real thing. Like, at its core, identity politics is really unpopular with white people, except when it's white identity politics. White people love white identity politics. That's why the majority of white people still voted for Donald Trump in my country. People who look like me voted for the fucking fascist. That's super exciting. The superior race decided that that fucking guy is their representative. Like, what is wrong with white people? Jesus Christ. What's wrong with white people is that they have been fed the lie that they are inherently superior, or that they are inherently the default and that everyone else is weird and abnormal. Because even if you look at like normal like identity politics, if you look at most of like the Democratic stuff, there's this inherent idea that people are either normal and white or they're special and not white. It's like, no. Everyone's just fucking people. We're just people, right? I don't see white people ever, okay? Okay, now, to be fair, the white people here are special. They're a special breed of idiot. No, that's not true. They are a problem here. Because there's a lot... I live right outside the fucking American school. It's a problem. Like, fucking Americans, man. Like, I keep seeing people walking around without masks. I say keep seeing. It's happened like 2 or 3 times. Bear in mind, it is a crime, and if it's egregious enough, normally they'll just give you like a $500 fine, right? If you're just walking around without a mask. By the way, if you're jogging, I think they actually changed that. I think you can't jog without a mask either now. I haven't seen anyone jogging without a mask anytime recently. For a time, jogging was an exception to the rule. If you're actually exercising, they didn't care. I'm waiting for this person to respawn. But these days, it's like a whole thing. So I'm just gonna get all of my random political commentary out that I've had just sitting in my head, and I don't want to talk about it because I'm afraid of alienating people, talking about all the shit that I know, and it's just very stressful to be here and just know all this random shit and be scared and not want to scare other people. And so, like, people are having a hard time right now, right? People are having a hard time, but, I want to talk about the things that people should, legitimately be afraid of right now, the things that they should be concerned about, and the things that, like, you don't even need to fucking worry about it, right? Like, there's plenty of shit that, like, isn't a problem. The situation in America right now is a big problem. But, like, anyway. So let's see here. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some COVID shit, okay? Singapore got its COVID shit under control. Now, people stopped talking about Singapore as if they had their shit under control a long time ago because they lost control of the dorm. And I want to talk about that for a bit because I've made reference to it before, but I haven't actually talked about it in a meaningful way. So I'm gonna talk about it for a while because I just feel like I need to. So early on, during the pandemic, I was very, very angry at 538. And the reason I was really, really angry at 538 is that 538 published an article that was basically saying that there's not really any statistical evidence that quarantines work. To which I say, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay? Quarantines, by definition, work. Viruses aren't magic. So quarantines work by definition. The question is whether the quarantines that have been done are effective quarantines, right? If you quarantine people successfully, the virus cannot spread. Because viruses are not magic. They don't just magically go places. So if you do a successful quarantine, it works. So let's talk about the quarantine in Singapore. Let's talk actually also about the difference between a quarantine and isolation. Putting a person... So in the colloquial way that we would use the term, putting a sick person in quarantine is not a thing. You cannot quarantine a sick person. You can put a sick person in isolation. Quarantine is when you put people who you do not know if they are sick or not in isolation, which is what you do to sick people, as if they were sick. So you're taking people that you haven't confirmed whether they are sick or well, and you quarantine them to prevent the spread of the disease among the people that you don't know whether they have it or not. So you do not quarantine sick people. That's not a thing. I mean, you can quarantine sick people in the sense that you can quarantine someone who shows symptoms but has not actually been proven to have the virus yet. So technically you can quarantine a person under those circumstances, but that's a very tiny niche. Generally speaking, quarantine is when you quarantine people based off of having some sort of contact and being in a class of people that needs to be in isolation because you think that they are of increased risk of giving the virus to someone. So as an example, if you allow foreigners into your country, right, but you say you have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine while you are taking repeated tests to see if you have the virus, That is a quarantine. If you take a person that comes to you with COVID and you put them in an isolation ward, that person is not quarantined. Anyway, so I think that those two distinctions are important because it matters in terms of the way that people interact with quarantine and the way that people interact with isolation. So, isolation is something that basically everyone does. Not everyone does quarantine. And most people who do quarantine don't do it very well or very effectively. Singapore, at the start, was doing an okay job at quarantine, but not a great job at quarantine. Now, the reason they weren't doing a great job at quarantine is because of the fucking Christians, and I'm going to go on a rant about the fucking death cult Christians right now, because fuck Christians. Jesus Christ, everywhere in the goddamn world, the Christians are spreading their fucking plagues around because they cannot stop congregating and fucking kissing each other in the mouth. Jesus Christ. So, here in Singapore, the majority of the cases that we got at the very beginning were from China. They were businessmen from China who then who got put into isolation or got sent back, right? Easy business, whatever. There was I think one cluster, like one small cluster that was associated with a bunch of people at a business that refused to follow the rules, and that business that refused to follow the rules about importing people, that business lost its ability to ever bring in foreign workers ever again. They lost their license to bring in foreign workers completely. That's how Singapore handles this shit. Everyone involved who wasn't a Singaporean was deported from the country with a ban permanently. They are never allowed to return to Singapore, period. They're going to get deported the second they get in the country. Their passport is no longer valid in Singapore. They take this shit seriously. So that's one of the first cases. But in addition, there were a bunch of people who traveled to Indonesia and various places who are, shall we say, Christian missionary type folks who decided, we don't need to worry about this. I don't feel sick. I'm going to go to my church because if I don't go to church, I'm going to fucking lose face. And people will believe that I don't have enough faith in God and blah, 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 bullshit Christian nonsense, etc. Whatever, right? So what they did is they ignored their home orders because when you came back to Singapore, you were told you need to stay at home for, I think it was originally a week, and then it got expanded to 2 weeks. You need to stay at home for a week or two or whatever it was, and you stay home and don't go anywhere because if you go somewhere, you might infect some people, okay? So that's what the stay-at-home orders do, Yahoo, whatever. Here's the problem. Most people in Singapore are very good at following instructions, but not the fucking crazy Christians. So, all the Muslims are following orders. They follow the same fucking God, but they can follow orders. Why? Because they're not fucking crazy cultists. The Christians, on the other hand, are full of all these persecution complexes and nonsense, so they decide what they're going to do is they are just going to go to church. So what happens? You have, I think, 2 or 3 massive spreading events in Singapore that are directly tied to the fucking churches because the churches keep telling people you should go to church even when you're fucking sick. And so they spread this shit all amongst themselves because they think they're immune to disease because they're fucking Christians, and Christians are fucking crazy. It's a death cult. I hate it. Anyway, I had my opinion of Christianity was toning down until this fucking pandemic hit. I had a very negative opinion of Christianity when I was a kid, and then that became a very negative opinion of religion generally. And then over time, my opinion of religion generally, and by extension because it got tied to the Christians, has been getting much more like chill as time passes. Fuck Christianity right up the ass. That fucking religion is a death cult, and they just keep fucking infecting people. Look at any super spreader event in any goddamn country. You want to look at Korea? Oh, wow. What percentage of the population is fucking, Christian? Some tiny, tiny proportion? Hey, guess how many of the fucking super spreader events are tied to fucking churches? Oh, wait, all of them. Oh, look at Singapore. What percentage of the population is Christian? Oh, like 5%, whatever. Right, I think it's closer to 10, whatever. Doesn't matter. Some tiny percentage of the population is Christian. Oh, great, okay, well, how many super spreader events are fucking tied to churches? Oh, every single goddamn one of them. Right? Like, they changed the definition of what a fucking super spreader event is defined as in Singapore. Right? And then, of course, all the worker dormitories get infected. And you know how the worker dormitories probably got fucking infected? Because the fucking workers probably... One of those fucking workers went to church, and they got infected, and then they infected the whole fucking dorm. Oh, God. Anyway, so you have a bunch of super spreader events that have happened in Singapore. But the super spreaders here, a super spreading event here, is a few dozen people get sick. Okay, right up until the dorm thing happened, we can talk about the dorm in a bit. But until the dorm thing happens, a super spreader event in Singapore is, holy shit, we have double-digit infection this month. Okay? There's 6 million people in Singapore, to be clear. It has a surprisingly large population. Like, either that or, alternatively, you could say other countries have surprisingly small populations. So the population of Singapore is roughly on par with Norway, Denmark, I think Scotland might be smaller, actually. Minnesota, by the way, on par with Denmark in terms of population. Who knew? Anyway, it's on par with a bunch of different places. I think it's on par with New Zealand. I think New Zealand has almost the exact same population, question mark, maybe? I don't remember. I was looking at these numbers a while ago. It doesn't matter. So, but here's the thing. In Singapore, they implemented a bunch of policies to tell people, you need to stay home if you're sick. If you have these symptoms, you need to immediately get a test. You get tested if you have these symptoms, get tested, etc., etc. Right now, where we have no fucking spread. Okay, I'm gonna actually switch to just camera for a second because my thing's screwing up and doing weird shit. So I'm gonna open up a browser, and we're gonna check something quick. Where are you? Where are you? There we go. Okay, so I have to do weird shit in order to get access to my desktop because Windows is just weird and dumb. All right, so here we go. Bow, bow, and I don't even remember what I was looking for. Okay, well, I have this open in the background now. I can look at it when I need to. All right, so basic gist is quarantine is something that a couple of places did early on. And a lot of places did it early on and then just stopped doing it. And the results are pretty predictable. So early on, Singapore, Korea, and a few other places took it really seriously immediately. And it's easy to think like, oh, Korea had huge problems earlier, right? It's like, yeah, they did. You want to know why? Because a fucking single church of these fucking lunatic cultists got 10,000 people in a fucking room and mass infected the entire goddamn room. Kind of deliberately. Okay? Allegedly legal. Like, they fucking... these churches are practically doing it on purpose, okay? They're fucking killing their congregants on purpose because they're a goddamn death cult. They're obsessed with the apocalypse. So, anyway, so a bunch of people get sick in Korea, and then immediately, within like 2 weeks, that curve goes from zoop to boom, and drops off a cliff. Why? Mass testing in a way that no country, including Singapore, has managed to accomplish since. But Singapore doesn't need to do it because they don't have that kind of mass infection, right, in the local populace. So they don't technically need it, but it would have been nice to have. It would have made me feel better early on. Because you don't know how much infection you have. We had infection coming in from the community for a while, and we had like double-digit infection, and it's like we're starting to get like 2 or 3 cases a day that we don't know where they came from, right? Where you don't have direct contact tracing for them. That was really scary for me. I was like, do we have orders of magnitude more infected than is currently being reported because we just don't have the testing for it? The answer, no, we did not. They had a pretty good handle on it, but we didn't know that for sure because of the way that we were testing, right? So, rather, I as a random observer did not have that information. The government may well have known that information because they have access to much more complicated analytics than me, and they have access to information that I didn't have because they have some information that is their private information, but they also have access to a way of analyzing information on a deeper level than I do, right? That's all fine. So they were right, and that's the important thing, right? They were right, and if they weren't right, I'm almost positive we would have had a massive uptick in infections. Hey, guess what? Then we did. So then the dorms happened. So the dorms happened, and everyone started talking about. Well, the funny thing was that first, like, everyone was talking about, like, fucking Singapore. At the very beginning, they're like, "Ooh, Singapore is, having so much trouble because, they're of their close ties to China, and they're blah 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 blah. They've got so much infection, and it's so dangerous. Why is Singapore so, susceptible to this?" Within a week of them spreading that fucking bullshit, want to know what happened? One British guy infected half of Europe. That's what fucking happened. One British guy came home, and he went through France. He spread the fucking disease to a dozen people or more in France, and then went back home and spread it to a few dozen people there. And ever since, they have not gotten that one fucking super spreader event under control. Neither country. They're both fucking hemorrhaging under COVID right now. The idea of getting it under control in the West is very different than the idea of getting it under control in the East. Eastern democracies do not have the same low standard for their government that Western democracies have. In Singapore, let's take a look at the number of new cases we had yesterday in Singapore. Okay? Number of new cases. Let's do a Control F for Singapore. 18 new cases yesterday. Singapore has a population of 6 million people. Okay? Of those 18, bear in mind, those cases are generally speaking foreigners who are already in quarantine. Because when someone comes into the country, they are put in quarantine immediately. Okay? Every single person who comes into Singapore from any country has a 2-week quarantine period that they must have. And Singapore has opened up its borders to travel with a few different countries, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So I think some of those might still be like a few hangovers from the dorms, but I don't think so. The dorm situation should be completely under control by now. It's been like a month since any major spread in the dorms. So the reason that Singapore has been able to get it under control, by the way, total number of deaths from COVID in Singapore this entire time is 28. That's 2 and 8 in a population of 6 million people. Okay, you compare that to Denmark. Denmark has orders of magnitude. Actually, they only have one order of magnitude. I think Denmark has about 750 dead. Okay, Denmark has the same population as Singapore. They also have a similar number of people who were infected. So why is it that Singapore has such a low mortality rate? The reason that Singapore has such a low mortality rate is actually kind of because they screwed up. It's because they screwed up, but because they then fixed their screw up in a very effective way. So let me explain. There's 58,000 people that have been infected with COVID in Singapore. Okay? That's total cases in Singapore, by the way. It's not people who have been infected here. That's local community spread is a different thing. It's a different number. Most of the people that are being added to our case numbers are people who came into the country with the disease now. So they're added to our case number because we identify it here, but it's not someone who caught it here. That's an important distinction to make, because if you don't know whether your disease was caught in your country or brought to your country, that's a big deal, okay? And most spread is local spread. Local spread is where you get the majority of your cases. Now, so where does this 58,000 come from? The 58,000 number comes from the dorms. Like, I think that outside of the dorms, there's probably only been like maybe 2,000, maybe 3,000 cases that aren't directly just the dorms, okay? And what are the dorms? So Singapore has very strong relationships, like economically, with India and a variety of other places, right? Now, from India, Singapore basically... So if you think about the way that American farmers basically hire illegal immigrants from Mexico to harvest their crops because there's no other way to get their crops harvested. And if they don't hire illegal immigrants because the government cracks down on illegal immigration, for instance, all of those farmers, their crops rot in the field because they have literally no way of getting them in. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. That's an actual thing in America. That is basically seasonal employment. So seasonal immigration. So seasonal immigration is when someone comes from a poor country and they say, I want to come to your country for a few months or a year or 2 years, however long it is, right? They're coming on a temporary basis. They're going to live in your country. Their accommodations and everything are handled by the company that hires them, right? And they come into your country and they work and then they go back home. And while they're working there, while they're working in your country, they don't have the same standard of living. They don't have the same standard of expense as a normal person in your population because they're living in, as an example, a dormitory with a bunch of other workers at the expense of the company that's hired them. So they don't have pretty much any expenses, but they make a bunch of money that they then send back home to their families. And there's a huge number of communities in India that are like their entire economy is built around money that's been influxed from people coming over to Singapore, making a bunch of money, sending it back home, and then they stimulate their local economy with it, right? Because it's not just a matter of money getting sent back home. Once those people have money, that's a market. Until they have money, they don't have a market. Once they have a market, you can now sell things to your neighbors because your neighbors have money now. Anyway, that's the basic gist. A lot of more impoverished communities in India have been able to make a lot of improvements because of this kind of system. This is the win-win that capitalism is ostensibly supposed to give you, and it's almost never done. It's very unusual for people to actually allow it because they want their local underclass. Now, you might think, well, what does that do to the job market in Singapore for all the jobs that they're doing? And the answer is it eliminates it, and that's a good thing. Singaporeans don't build houses. Singaporeans program computers, do banking, and do other high-level shit that makes them a shit ton of money. There's no reason for Americans to do farming because it's shitty work that doesn't generate enough money to justify doing it for the person who's doing it. Americans should be programming. Americans should be doing art shit. Americans should be doing science and STEM shit. There's no reason for Americans to be doing this shit in the largest economy in the world. Okay? It's crazy. You don't need to have a local population that is poor. Someone needs to take out the trash. Do they have to live in your country permanently? Or can they be someone for whom taking out the trash in your country is a great way for them to make money that they send home to their family and that they then get to go back to? Because the money that they're making is shit if you're living off the cost of living in Singapore, but it's amazing if you're living off the cost of living in India. And that's what that's where their family is. They leave their family at home, they go work, they come back, right? This is just really basic shit. And America in particular is very bad at but let's be honest, most Western countries are really bad at this shit. Most Western countries are really fucking racist, and they do not like importing immigrants, and they don't like the idea of seasonal immigration. And this is true, by the way, both like the left and the right in America, because most people on the left think of this as a fundamentally exploitative relationship. And guess what? Welcome to fucking capitalism. Every relationship in capitalism is exploitative. Wake up. This is one of the least exploitative relationships that can exist because I've actually talked to some people locally about this as well. If you have a population of people that are trapped in your country that cannot leave because they don't have the money to leave, and they have nothing, they have no wealth, they have no capital, they have no means of escape, and they are poor in your country, how much power do you think they have politically, economically, etc.? None. They're going to be an entrenched underclass forever. They're never going to stop being an entrenched underclass. Now think about this. If those people, the people who are poor in your country, are only in your country for 6 months at a time, and then they go back home to their own country, you can't exploit them the same way. Unless you kidnap them. But it's very easy to prevent kidnapping, okay? Like, that's not hard. It's not hard to prevent a company from fucking kidnapping slave labor, okay? That's not hard. So, people who go back home will talk about their experience in that foreign country. And they'll talk about the conditions that they lived in. They'll talk about like how dangerous the work environment is. They'll talk about how like acceptable or unacceptable the dorm life was, whether the place that they were at was an acceptable quality for them. And they'll talk about the money that they made, and they'll have the money. If any of those factors are a huge hurdle that they don't want, then the other people in their country aren't going to want to come. The people in their community will not want to come to your country because your country sucks at bringing people in on a win-win level. It's easy to get a win-win relationship when you're talking about just the price of importing someone from a really poor country to one of the richest countries on the fucking planet. It's easy to make that a win-win relationship, but people don't want to. Right? Because people, they have this essentialist thinking. They're like, oh, well, you know, I'm a farmer and my family should be farmers forever and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, they shouldn't, because farming sucks. It just does. Manufacturing work sucks. We're evolving out of this work. Robots are doing this work now, right? It's not good work. We don't want our people doing this. We want people who currently are impoverished to be brought out of poverty by doing the thing. Anyway. So, back to the dorms. So the dorms are basically where all these foreign workers live. Now, important thing about the foreign workers. The foreign workers are, by and large, almost universally, young men between the ages of 20 and 30. Or at the very least, between the ages of 20 and 40. Okay? Young people are in the dorms. All of our cases in this country are in the dorms. And the government fucked up because they did not institute appropriate standards for those dormitories, and they did not enforce well enough on those dorms in advance. However, once they got off their ass and realized that they had a problem, they quarantined the dorms in a very effective fashion. They took all the people who were in the dorms, they moved them out of the dorms to fucking hotels, where each person had their own separate hotel room. See, this is why people do quarantine shit. This is why the West is so bad at quarantine. When the West thinks of quarantine, they're basically thinking of concentration camps. And concentration camps spread disease, they don't kill it. So when you think of a quarantine in the West, you tend to think of a bunch of people that have been tossed in a room together. Some of them are sick, some of them are healthy. You have no way of knowing who's who. And you just don't care. You just leave them there until you decide that it's safe to remove them. Whatever, right? That's not how you do quarantine. That's not an effective quarantine. So what Singapore did, and this is how you can do capitalist shit and actually get me happy about it. Okay, Singapore has decided, because they run at a surplus all the time. They said, okay, so here's the thing. We have this rainy day fund that we literally never spend from. We are going to spend a small amount of the reserve rainy day fund for COVID-related reasons to do a bunch of COVID shit, to do a bunch of COVID stimulus. This is just money that the government's sitting on, basically. And the other side, their political enemies, because it was an election year, it's a whole thing. Their political enemies were like, what? You want to spend money? This is unacceptable. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, that didn't last for long because it was a really stupid argument that didn't go anywhere. Anyway, but I thought it was funny because it's like, what? You want to actually spend some of that dragon's hoard that we've saved up for this specific purpose, or what? Not we, that you've saved up for this explicit purpose. There's only one political party that's actually relevant in Singapore. The other political parties are starting to get better. They are starting to get better. They've been shit for the entire time I've been here, but they are starting to get better. They still have some really dumb ideas in their heads, but they at least are making an attempt and they're making some progress. Instead of just being like, you should vote for us to put the fear of God in the fucking other people. And by that I don't mean literally. I just mean you to scare the PAP. You should vote for us, right? That was basically the other party's And by parties, I do mean like all of them, all of the other parties. That was basically the thing that they ran on, and it worked in like a few different places. Anyway. So, the dorm situation was such that basically a lot of people got infected in the dorms. I was surprised how many people there must be in the dorms, considering that the numbers just kept going. But we've had 50,000 people who were infected. What the government was already doing was creating basically like quarantine centers, and the way that they did it is they said, there's literally no one coming into the country, so all of our hotels have no money. So what we're going to do is we're just going to buy out a hotel. They bought out like entire floors, just whole swaths of hotels in the country, and said, okay, well, we're going to convert this into a quarantine center temporarily, right? So they initiate very strict protocols on who can enter and leave, blah, 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 all the different things. They set up a quarantine center in the hotel, and they're paying the hotel, so the hotel stays in business. And they're in a ritzy fucking hotel because there's no cheap, shitty hotels in Singapore because it's really expensive to travel to. There's no shitty hotels in Singapore. So anyway, so they take these people, they put them up in these nice hotels, right? Which is the kind of thing that like the, fucking conservatives like to pretend that is what's happening to like criminals and shit in America, which is very much not the case. But anyway, they're literally putting people into these ritzy hotels, which is great because ritzy hotels have all sorts of these systems already in place. They have good hygiene standards already. They already know how to do how to make sure that you don't spread infection with with bed sheets and all this kind of stuff. All this infrastructure already exists in the hotels. They know how to do this shit. They just have to adjust things slightly to deal with the particulars of COVID. So they put all the people in the hotels, and then they quarantined them in the hotels until they got the situation under control. And eventually, they got the situation under control. Took a little longer than I would have liked, but I mean, it's like having the common cold if the common cold killed like 5% of the people who got it. That's basically what we've got right now. So anyway, so right now, because of the fact that they did quarantine, they were able to say, hey, look, we don't have people dying. Because unlike the strategy of just like, well, let's just let everyone get sick and hopefully the wrong people don't get sick kind of strat, which is basically what, America's strategy has been. I'm so fucking dead, by the way. Got like 4 different routes on me. Instead of doing that strategy, what we could do is do a strategy where, like, we just prevent people from interacting so that people across different spectrums don't interact. So, like, very few old people in Singapore got COVID because old people generally aren't interacting with foreigners that much. So the people who were coming in from outside the country weren't infecting them that much. And then by the time the disease would have the ability to spread to the old person, their contact tracing that they were doing was sufficient that they could catch their, son or whatever before their son interacted with them and gave them COVID. Right? Before their son became infectious, they suspected their son had it and said, you need to go into quarantine because if you don't, there's a chance that you have COVID. And because people here actually do what they're told, people would quarantine and they wouldn't infect their parents and kill them. Yeah, except the Christians. We've been over that. So and that's not even fair. Most of the Christians didn't do that. I'm just saying that literally the only people who are fucking super spreaders in Asia are Christians. So maybe it's a problem, right? Anyway, not all Christians, but like not all Christians, but only Christians. There's a problem here. Anyway, so what's been going on in Singapore since? So, I've been playing the last week. I've been playing a lot of this new Niantic game. It's called Catan World Explorers. So I've been out and about. I've been running around because it's an Niantic game. So you go around and you like get you harvest resources that are tied to like actual locations in the world, and you do a bunch of shit in like the world, right? That's why I wasn't like doing that. I forgot. And it's for me that's actually easy and comfortable to do because I live in Singapore, and Singapore took the situation seriously. For my purpose, in the early days when the government was really struggling with how they were going to handle like the problem, like how they were going to handle COVID, my life was just, oh, I need to get some masks, and then okay, I can get the masks from my community center downstairs because the government is distributing masks to every citizen. So they know at the community center what you show them your IC and you collect the masks for your residents. Right? And then they look at your residence and they check you off as having collected the masks for your residents, and then you go about your day. And the masks that I use to this day are still those same cloth masks. My wife doesn't use those masks because they're reusable masks. They're a little heavier, and like she uses the non-reusable ones because it's Singapore. It's frickin' hot, and it's very hard to have like a thick cloth mask on your face all day unless you're like a weirdo monster like me. So, at any rate. So some people are using those, and some people are using ones that they bought, either like, you know, either usable, reusable, or not, either reusable or disposable, etc. For a few days, there was a shortage of toilet paper. But the reason that I put the shortage there in quotes is because the supply distribution never actually got interfered with, but basically a bunch of people panicked and decided they were going to purchase literally every roll of toilet paper in Singapore. And so for a period of about 42 hours, like not even a full 2-day period, you would have to wait in line for toilet paper because there were a bunch of people who were waiting in line to get toilet paper today, even though they didn't need toilet paper. And a lot of people were buying just mountains and mountains of rice and toilet paper and all this shit. And all of the suppliers are laughing their way to the fucking bank because there was no interruption of the supply chain. So every 6 hours, a fresh shipment of toilet paper would come in that would be immediately purchased by a massive number of people. And it was really hilarious. And eventually they had to like institute like, you can only purchase, like they had to institute rationing in these stores because the people just kept buying all the toilet paper. Anyway, so 36 hours later, all of those people feel really dumb and sheepish because they can't buy enough toilet paper to actually zero out the toilet paper supply, even when they're basically actively trying. It was very amusing. So anyway, but when that happened, I actually told my family in the United States, you should buy toilet paper now, because the Singaporeans are panicking today, which means that you all are going to have people panicking in like, I don't know, like a month. And if you buy it now, then you won't in any way, shape, or form be interfering with the supply chain, and you won't be part of the big rush later. And then, you know, a month later, America was completely out of toilet paper, and they never got it back. I mean, eventually they got it back, but it took forever because all the supply chains were disrupted. Everything was just like went to shit. So for me, there was like just simple stuff, and the reason that my country has had such an easy time is they do things competently because they actually give a shit about meritocracy. They actually give a shit, and no one in America gives a shit about meritocracy. Like, I'm looking at these, you have the Republican Party who are, at this point, basically just fascists, so obviously they're not meritocratic because that's not how fascism works. But, so you've got them, and then you've got the Democrats, and look at the leadership of the Democrats. The Democratic Party, which failed for 4 years under the leadership that it's had, has decided that it's going to put the same leadership in charge today. Like, within the last, 48 hours, they decided, you know who should lead us to victory? Is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. The fucking idiots who failed to do anything meaningful to handle Trump and who keep losing to fucking Trump, who is an idiot and a fascist. Like, come on. And then they just put those people back in power. It's like, yeah, we could just put the same idiots back in charge who have done nothing. And that's not to say that you don't want the Democrats in charge. It's to say that the Democratic Party in Congress and in the Senate should be saying, you two chuckle fucks fucked us for 4 years under Trump and did nothing useful. You two are going to go away now and sit in the back of the Senate and you do your voting, but you're not allowed to be the people making the decisions because you're obviously bad at it. That's the obvious thing that should be getting done by the Democratic Party right now, is a change of leadership, because they've been objectively failing so badly for this entire presidency, right? But no, that's not going to happen, because they don't actually give a shit about doing anything on a meritocratic basis, and it's all just bullshit. Anyway. So, American politics is ridiculous. But, it's not... Most of the shit isn't actually that hard. It's just that I feel like in the West, and this is an issue that I see a lot in Western countries, even countries that seem like they're doing a little bit better are doing better because they happen to have, someone better in charge, or, in the cases of countries like Norway, because they happen to have a geographic position that makes it so that they kind of don't have as big a problem by default, right? The way that Norway has handled the epidemic is by basically sticking their head in the sand and pretending that it's not happening. And the only reason that their situation isn't as bad as America's and the UK's is because they happen to live in fucking Norway, and there's no people in it. There's the same population as Singapore, but it's the size of fucking Florida. Okay? It's insane, okay? So, yeah, I'm calling you out, Norway. Not Norwegians generally, but the government has not been doing a good job by you. And a lot of it comes down to this cultural idea of just, sticking your head down and just not, kicking up a fuss. Now, what's funny is that that's associated with Asian cultures, but in an Asian culture, if your fucking boss, in Singapore, if the government does something that it's not supposed to do, or doesn't do something as well as it's supposed to do, people will bitch and moan and complain and just throw a huge goddamn fit. I cannot possibly do this on this mount. I need a new mount. I need a different mount. You know what? No, we're gonna arc mode this shit. I'm gonna do it on this mount. Let's see. They will bitch and moan and complain. In America, they put these people in power, and then they just say, well, obviously, because capitalism works, and obviously because our systems are perfect, these people must, by definition, be the most competent people. And we need to respect the office. Yeah, you want to see how much the Singaporeans respect the office of Prime Minister? Ha! Ha! They have a lot of respect for Lee Kuan Yew, because he was a legitimately amazing man. They have a lot of respect for the government, generally, because the government is generally competent. But they don't have any respect for the idea that they can't shit-talk their government for being dumb and doing bad things. It's like, oh, yeah, the government did this stupid, dumb thing. Okay, wow, look at how dumb the government is. They're so useless. And half the time they're talking that shit and they don't know what they're talking about. They're wrong. But, in America, there's this idea that you have the people who think that the government is dumb and useless, and that's the right wing, and you have the people who think that the government is some, sacrosanct union of law, and, you need to follow all of the laws, and the laws of the land are perfect, and if people follow the laws perfectly, then you will always get good results. And honestly, both parties are kind of both of those two things, kind of at the same time, and kind of at different times, in a sense. Both of the parties kind of engage in both of those things. They both have this, ludicrous obsession with authority, and they both have this ludicrous obsession with the idea that authority is corrupt. at the same time. They both hold those ideas completely, which is why Democrats and Republicans are really similar. They really are. The difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is the Republicans say, fuck you if you're not white, and the Democrats say, fuck you to everyone. The Republicans are actually fucking over white people way worse than the Democrats are, by the way. Like, just to be clear, there's a big difference between appealing to someone's needs and appealing to basically, like, reactionary bullshit that works politically but doesn't actually do anything useful for a person, right? So let's go back to the example about Arathi Basin, right? So if you go to the example about Arathi Basin, the conservative obvious choice in that battleground is, okay, we're going to take some resource nodes and then we're just going to hold them because defending is easier than attacking, right? And defending, you do have an advantage while defending. You're closer to your spawn point. You have that advantage. You have that obvious advantage. But the attackers have the non-obvious advantage that they choose where they are going to attack. And that advantage is the greater advantage, but you can't see it. It's not a tangibly visible advantage. So that advantage is one that they just kind of, like, ignore, right? And so if you want to do what the conservatives will tell you, right, you'll do the stupid, silly reactionary thing that's obviously the correct choice until you do a little bit of research. And then you do a little bit of research and you go, okay, well, it's not actually the right choice. It doesn't actually help us. It's actually bad for everyone, including the people who want it. It's understandable that they want it. Like, it's understandable that, like, white people think that empowering black people will hurt them. Because how have white people used power for the last 500 years? Right? The invention of the concept of whiteness is about 500 years old. So for that 500 years, whiteness has been used as a weapon to hurt people. And the assumption is that if you empower a different race, which is, again, a fictional concept that they came up with a few hundred years ago, if you empower another race, they're going to do the same thing that you're doing to them. Like, it's not a surprise. It shouldn't. People treat it as like it's hypocritical that, like, the Republicans are always saying, ooh, the Democrats are going to do all of these, horrible things if they're put in power, and so we can't let them come into power, right? And people think that it's hypocritical of them to say that they don't want the Democrats in power because they're going to do all of these things. And it's not actually hypocritical, it's just self-interested. To them, they don't want the Democrats to do what they intend to do to black people to white people. And they think that the Democrats are going to do it because that's what they intend to do. There's literally nothing hypocritical about it. It's just them saying, there are two options here. Either I am going to get fucked, or I'm going to be the one doing the fucking. And that is the incredibly sad, dystopian world that these people legitimately live in. They live in a world where they think that everyone is going to get fucked if they don't do the fucking themselves. And they think that that is a natural, inevitable thing. They think that the Democrats and the Republicans are basically the same thing, except for the key factor that the Republicans are going to do it for them. And that the Republicans are going to benefit them. So that's what they think. They think that white supremacy benefits whites because it seems on its face like white supremacy should benefit whites. Shouldn't it? Because white people should benefit from this shit. They're the ones that are being put at the top of the pecking order. But are they, though? Are all whites being put at the top of the pecking order? Are white people being put in power? No, they're not. They're just not getting kicked as much as the other people are. And that's the big lie of white supremacy. White supremacy was created for the explicit purpose, and it was white supremacy in its current form is not a Portuguese invention. Racism generally is a Portuguese invention. But modern institutionalized racism, the likes of which America has right now, is a legitimate American invention, okay? Europe didn't invent racism until it needed to figure out a way to justify the triangle trade, okay? Like, the slave trade is what defined that, and the slave trade was defined by the Americas, where they had a bunch of land, but all of the locals couldn't be enslaved because they all died of smallpox, okay? So they needed a bunch of workers, and they said, hey, we could just, like, kidnap a bunch of people from Africa. Let's do that. So anyway, but the institutions of modern slavery as we think of them are basically an American invention, okay? So, but the racism as we have it today was only really codified into law. Like, the racism, even the sexism, like, most of the weird, like, American, because, like, sexism in America is a little different than sexism in other countries. Like, legitimately, it's different. America has, like, a different relationship with a lot of things than its European counterparts. America is not European. They do not have European values. They are a colony. And America has a history as both colonizer and colonized. France was not colonized, okay? France does not share cultural norms with America because America was a colony, and that's important. Anyway, but the reason that they basically institutionalized racism on a large-scale level was because all of the white people kept rebelling, because the white people were the majority, right? The majority of people were white, but the white people kept saying, wait, you're going to give, like, I was promised good farmable land by the government. When I came here, I worked my ass off for 8 years as basically a slave in order to have my chance at a new life. I was promised land, and I was promised to be able to just farm and do things for my family, and it was going to be great. And then you decided to give me a bunch of land that's in the fucking mountains with a fucking forest that is currently inhabited by a sovereign nation. And when that sovereign nation tells me, no, this is my land, not yours, you said, suck it up, pick up a gun, and shoot everyone in that fucking sovereign nation. You told me and my family that we need to go conquer Native American territory because it's mine now with no support from the army. Okay, that's not happening, but hey, I do have that gun that you told me to shoot the natives with. How about I turn it on you? And so, a bunch of angry white people rebelled in the rural areas, and a lot of the colonies had basically institutionalized racism set up as a means of appeasement for all of the white, what were they called? I'm trying to remember what they were. It wasn't leasemen. It was something along those lines. But basically, there was a promise that was given to people that you could basically be enslaved for 8 years, and after that 8 years of enslavement, they would give you a bunch of land, and that would be great. And you would basically, so you would work someone else's, land first, and then you would then you would own your own land and potentially bring more people in. And that's how America spread to a large degree. And it was actually a really interesting and good system right up until they ran into all the sovereign nations that are surrounding America and decided that it was too much work to actually shoot them with their military, and that they would just send people in to, they would just say, okay, well, you know what? You guys can deal with it on your own. It's your land anyway. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. It's a very American thing. Okay, so this is your land now. There's a sovereign nation on it. Okay, so kill them all. I'm one person and there's like 2,000 people living here that have like a standing army. And you're white. Like, what? So anyway, rebellion happened, and a lot of the laws that specifically disallow women and black people from voting, and a lot of the laws that explicitly state that black people must, by definition, be slaves, were actually not in the original, text of the region and were in fact things that were added later because they were basically dealing with white people rebellions, and they wanted to be able to say, well, these black people are always going to be a permanent underclass from you, and these women are always going to be a permanent underclass, because women could actually vote in most of the early colonies. It wasn't explicitly disallowed. The women generally couldn't hold property because of agnatic succession, but your wife could inherit your property if you didn't have a male heir. So if you didn't have a male heir, your wife would inherit your property, and by extension, she would inherit your ability to vote. So women could vote in the colonies. They lost the ability to vote. Black people could be free in the early South. They lost the ability to be free because of explicit policies that were put in place, explicit white nationalist policies, but they were white nationalist policies that weren't put in place to actually empower white people. What they were meant to do was to separate the working base of whites and blacks. So by basically saying the poor black people are a different caste and therefore are always below you, they will always have different economic interests than you as a white person. By separating those economic interests out, what happens is that the richest people in the country were able to make it so that the black and white proletariat, that is to say the working people who are black and white, would never actually unite against them. And that is where systemic racism comes in. Systemic racism exists for the purpose of basically sicking poor people against each other, while the rich people just laugh their way to the bank. And that's how it is, right? Anti-Semitism exists for... Anti-Semitism probably exists for complicated reasons, but they're not actually that complicated. The reason that anti-Semitism exists is actually pretty well summed up in a specific mechanic that exists in Crusader Kings 2. But the reason that it exists more generally, and the reason that it's so prominent to this day, is that it's much easier for the rich to say there is a secret cabal of people that are secretly in control of everything, and it's not us, it's the Jews. It's this other group of people. They are the ones who are secretly in control of everything. That's who's in control of everything, and that's who you need to hate. Now, the reason that it started originally is actually kind of funny because it comes down to the specifics of Christianity. So usury, which is the act of charging interest, is actually against Jesus' teachings. So Christians cannot actually run banks that charge interest. So if a banker is doing bank shit, guess what? They're going to hell. Yeah, you can't be a Christian and a banker. Sorry. So usury is explicitly banned by the Bible. People don't pay attention to that because, people don't pay any attention to the actual tenets of the religion because that would be inconvenient for them. So I need to do the Najatar campaign to get into here. Should I just fuck around in some PvP or something? I should queue for a dungeon. Should I just do a random heroic? Or just a normal random dungeon? That'd be kind of fun. I'm going to do a normal random dungeon. I think it'll be funny. I don't know how powerful I'm going to be relative to a normal dungeon at this point, but I think it'll be amusing. So I'm just looking for something to do in the background while I'm just talking about all this shit. Because I legitimately, it's I don't really want to talk to my friends and family about this shit, but I have to talk. I have to talk about this with somebody because I have so much shit in my head. There's so much stuff. There's so much knowledge that I have. There's so much shit that I've been researching. But I'm always terrified to make a video about it because I want to always be exactly correct. And you can never be, especially someone like me. I have ADHD. It's very, very hard for me to be precise. Precision is very, very hard for me, and I want to be precise, so it sucks. So that's why we're doing this fucking live stream. The whole reason this live stream exists. It's fine. No more video essays, just political bullshit live streams. That's what we're doing. And so anyway, it's super interesting just looking into, I think it was called the Whiskey Rebellion, but just, looking into all of the different, historical precedents for all this shit and learning how stuff works. There was a video that some talking head, I don't remember who it was. I think was it Van Jones? it was some guy who was on like CNN or MSNBC or something, and he's like a lawyer, and he's like a pundit who's like literally an elections expert, and he made a video talking about how he thought he understood how the Electoral College works, but he actually didn't. And as he was researching, he was like, "Oh shit, this is terrifying." Right? Because the Electoral College has so many working parts that everyone just pretends aren't there, right? People pretend that the popular vote in the state matters, and it's like, it kind of matters. It matters as long as people keep allowing it to matter, but it stops mattering the second that people stop allowing it to matter, which is true for most institutions. Most institutions, at some point, all institutions either exist because at the end of a line, you have a person with a gun, or you have have like some sort of basic human thing that people just made up, right? Like just some people are just doing it because they're doing it, right? At some point, someone said to do a thing, and then people just are doing it, right? And usually it's a mixture of both. But that's how norms work. That's how laws work. Laws are only as good as the people who are enforcing them, and America's not great on that regard. So. Anyway, so institutionalized racism is a weird thing. Racism generally is kind of interesting because it's a very Western thing. So it's important to understand that like the concept of race was invented by the Portuguese to justify the slave trade, right? It was literally invented by a guy. Like, we have the book. So a book was written for the Portuguese crown with the explicit purpose of saying black people aren't people. Actually, that's not true. Not saying black people. African people, so people from the entire continent of Africa, are in fact not actually people. That was the function of the book, so that they could justify selling people into slavery. And because slavery obviously goes against all Christian philosophy. There's no justification as a Christian to be behind slavery. Slavery is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So they had to come up with the idea that black people aren't actually people, except they didn't say black people, they said Africans, whatever. You get the idea. So anyway, they separated the world into white and black. Or more accurately, they separated the world into people and black. And then eventually, colloquially, people who aren't black, as in people who aren't from Africa, just became known as white. And anyone who was considered to be cultured and personish was considered white. So the Japanese, the Indians, Chinese, they were all considered white until it became politically expedient to not have them be white anymore. Right? They were considered white. When people showed up, they were like, wow, there's white people over here in India. That's so cool. Look at all these white people in Japan. Why? Because they were part of their integrated trade networks and they weren't trying to enslave them. Then they decided that they needed to enslave some Japanese people, and they decided that, maybe since we're going to be enslaving some Japanese people, maybe we should stop calling them white, because enslaving white people doesn't seem like a good idea. So clearly they have to be something else. They enslaved a lot of Japanese women to use as sex slaves. Fun fact. Yay, slavery! Because people think of slavery as just being a thing that we did to Africa, but slavery is more complicated than that. Africa is where a lot of the slaves were taken from for the triangle trade, which is a whole thing, and it was very economically efficient for them to do. But it was not, by any stretch of the imagination, the be-all, end-all of slavery. There was a lot of slavery to go around. A lot of people got enslaved, including white people, right? And white people have been enslaved too. Not that white people really means anything, because my people weren't considered white recently. Right? Within the last 100 years, I'm Irish. I'm almost 100% Irish. I was not white 100 years ago. My family, when they came to America, they were not white. They were Irish. And that means a very different thing. And it is actually super interesting because I generally just think of myself as being white. And most people who see me think of me as white. And every time I talk to my wife about this, she finds it incredibly bizarre because, she actually expects some degree of basic coherence, because the idea that the Irish, which are the whitest of the whites, were not considered white is madness, but Indians were considered white. I think that Indians, as in people from India, were considered white at a time period where the Irish were not. The Irish were simultaneously not white, while the Indians, who you will note are brown generally. Though Northern Indians are interesting because a lot of Northern Indians actually look Russian. It's kind of interesting, like their particular features, because if you look, they don't like, because it's like the combination of like the Persian and like so like the Middle Eastern and like Indian subcontinent features. For whatever reason, that particular like there's ethnic groups up there because like Indian is not a single like ethnic group. It's not even close to a single ethnic group. There's so many Indian ethnic groups. Like India has there are more Indians than there are white people in the world. Okay? And they have just as much diversity as you would expect from having more total population than white people do. Like there is this like assumption that like what does Chinese fucking mean? Chinese doesn't mean anything. That's not an ethnicity. Don't even talk crap. Right? Like that's not an ethnicity. It's laughable to think of that as an ethnicity, right? And yet people do because it's convenient for people to think of China as being ethnically one thing. Specifically, it's convenient for the ruling party in China. This is not a white people thing. The idea that Chinese people are Chinese because they're from China is very much a nationalist thing that is beneficial for the government because this is a fun fact. The area that they control is not a historical border of China. It's actually substantially larger than the historical borders of China, and they want people to just kind of forget all of the people that they conquered back in the 1900s. We could just pretend that these countries didn't exist, right? Mongolia is still part of China, right? Yeah, you don't hear too much about that, right? Yeah, Mongolia, not Chinese. that is an occupied state. Hey, Tibet, how's it going? Yeah, you're occupied too, right? You're occupied too. There's lots of occupied entities in that area, and they're not at all Chinese. They're just not. Like, they're not culturally. They're not like. There's no de jure claim to them. It's just that they were conquered, and nobody gave a shit in the West, and the West had the armies, and Japan might have stopped them, except Japan wasn't allowed to because Japan had recently done a fascism, and so they were told, you are not allowed to have an army, and also you are now a puppet of the United States. And I don't know how long the puppet status actually lasted, where they were like a legitimate puppet of the United States. But honestly, the transition has worked reasonably effectively. Like, Japan is way better now than it was when it was fascist. But never forget, Germany did some really terrible things. Japan did some really terrible things. Looking at the history of Singapore is super interesting because people here do not talk about the occupation. Like, you do not talk, like, the uncles who were there, they don't talk about it, right? But it happened, and there was a bit of a genocide, okay? Like, the Japanese came in, and they said, if you are a Chinese man between the ages of, like, 20 and 40, you should get on this truck. And then they got them all on the trucks, and then they drove them out to the shore, and then they shot them all in the head. And that's what Japan did. This is the kind of shit that Japan did. And Japan still does not acknowledge a lot of the shit that it did during World War II. And they do have some fascist leanings right now that are very concerning because, unlike Germany, which accepts and directly denounces their fascist past, Japan, most Japanese people would never know that they were actually fascist because they don't talk about it. They do not talk about it. The history there is lost. But the history is not lost everywhere. Even though people don't talk about it. Like, I know a lot of people here who are Chinese, and they don't like. I've asked them whether their parents and their grandparents and stuff talked about the occupation, and the mostly universal answer is no. No, the uncles will not talk about it, and it's just scary. And seeing the way that people survived the extermination is super crazy. Lee Kuan Yew, his book is super interesting because he was he was a young Chinese man during the occupation. Okay, so yeah, he has his story of how he escaped from being executed by by the Japanese army. The Japanese army was planning to execute him, and he knew what was up. But see, here's the thing. They were still pretending that they weren't going to execute everyone. So they didn't want to make a scene out of things, right? So it's they wanted to get him to get into their truck to sign up for something or whatever, right? And what it actually is they're going to take all these people that they get in the truck and then they're going to drive them out and execute them, right? So, because they think that they're going to be loyalists to mainland China or whatever. So basically he made up some excuse that he needed to get his shirt or something, right? Because it the thing that they were saying was was supposed to be on the up and up. So he needed something in order to be able to do the thing that they told him to do. So he said, I need to run home to grab that thing and then I'll be right back, right? And then he went into hiding for a month because he needed to hide from the fucking army. But that was the dynamic in Singapore. So we should not forget that very recently we were doing a fascism. As a humanity, we were doing a fascism in a lot of places. And the fundamentals of how we got to the point where we did the fascism, they haven't changed much. We haven't really changed any of the fundamentals. We are still very much at risk. We're at risk of fascism. And we will be at risk of fascism probably forever because people are really dumb. This is something that the longer I go through my life, the more I realize that in addition to fundamental just people having difficulty processing information generally, I've noticed that there's a certain type of fundamentalist thinking that makes it very hard to communicate with large sections of the population. And this I'm not talking about political ideology here, because this crosses ideological boundaries. What I've found is that people do not have a strong understanding of cause and effect. And people do have this fundamentally religious belief in the idea that people are going to do what they say they're going to do, not what they are obviously intending to do. And there's all of these sort of social norms that are associated with basically trusting people that fall apart the second that you have someone who's acting with legitimate malice. Because by assuming that people aren't acting with any malice, you discount the possibility that someone is actually acting with malice. And I think that one of the dumbest things my father ever told me was never attribute to malice what can be satisfactorily explained by stupidity. And that was one of the greatest lies he ever told me. I mean, it wasn't a lie, he believed it. But that was one of the things that he fundamentally misunderstood the most. For me, My thing would be never assume that a system exists the way that it does because it's the best way to accomplish the outward like assumption of what the thing is supposed to do. All systems exist to continue to exist. You can think of it as like gravity. It's like a force. Systems that are good at not ceasing to exist exist. Systems that are bad at staying around don't exist. But there's no correlation inherently between a system doing the thing that it is designed to do and a system continuing to exist. Being successful, like a system being successful at its stated objectives, right, can be a survival trait, or it can be the opposite of that. So as an example, let's take a look at unions. So why is it that like some of the there's such a distinct difference between the way that a lot of union leaders behave and the way that members of the union behave? Like, why is it that the interests of union leaders seem to differentiate themselves so strongly from the interests of the members? Shouldn't the leadership be the people who represent the interests of the people in that group the best? Right? Wouldn't that make sense? No, because by definition, the people who lead the group are the people who serve their own ends the best. That's why they have power. They have power because they granted it to themselves by their actions. That's why they have it. So, thinking of things in terms of like the objective that this is supposed to do and how the system's supposed to work, and not like using the letter of the law while like ignoring the spirit of it. There's no such thing as the spirit of the law. The letter of the law exists, and if the letter of the law has holes in it, it has holes in it because someone wants there to be holes, or someone doesn't believe those holes matter. Right? Someone doesn't believe that they can ever be used. But those holes can be used, and eventually they will. You want to design robust systems that do what they are supposed to do. And tradition is shit, because tradition is, generally speaking, so like the longer the tradition exists, the more its survival is predicated not on its success in accomplishing the stated objectives that it has, but instead on serving its own survival, right? So the survival of the thing becomes more important the longer that it lasts. So if a system has existed for 200 years, right, as an example, are you targeting me? If a system's existed for 200 years, it has existed for 200 years. It has managed to survive that long. So that means that it is almost certainly extremely good at serving its own interests. So what are its interests, right? Are its interests to sort of like reinforce the, thing that it's supposed to accomplish? So like as an example, like if you look at political parties and things like that, right? What is the interest of the Republican Party? Not the people, the party itself. The like fictional like silliness that we call this collection. That collective exists so long as it continues to exist. It doesn't even have to be useful to any individual in particular. It has to be useful to itself, right? So what makes it useful to itself? What are its survival practices, right? Well, the Republican Party's strategy thus far in the last 50 years has been a disenfranchisement policy, right? Their strategy has been, if we can prevent black people from voting, we win, right? And that is their strategy, and that is the way that they can win elections, right? That is the way that they currently win elections. So they will continue to survive as an organization for as long as they can continue to do that, and their organization will continue to be more carefully and precisely honed in that direction without anyone involved making any conscious effort to actually disenfranchise minorities. People will be recruited into the organization and will do the organization's bidding based on all sorts of bullshittery because that is the survival strategy for the organization. So if the organization were to stop being racist and stop actively trying to suppress black votes, what happens? Well, it's complicated. It's easy to say, oh, well, if they stop winning black votes, then they'll stop winning votes at all, right? And it's like, well, no, because when they stop winning when they cease gaining the ability to successfully suppress black votes, then what actually happens is the party just changes because the survival strategy needs to be different if you can't suppress black votes. Because the organization, and by extension the people in the organization, because it's easy to think of people as sovereign, but people only have power because an entire systemic architecture allowed it to happen, right? So people gain power based off of their basically keeping the system in place, right? And that's not because there's some cabal behind the scenes that's like making active choices. That's not how that works. What it is a gravitational pull that a organization will continue to be successful as long as it continues to be successful. That seems like kind of a silly thing that is like redundant, but it's important to understand that, as an example, if the Republican Party can cheat and say, look, we're just going to initiate a coup under a fascist dictator, if they can do that, they will do that. If they win, that is what will happen. Because that is what the strategy is that keeps the organization intact. So that is the way that the system will work. So either the strategy will work or it won't. And if their strategy doesn't work, then they will be replaced by a strategy that works. By they, I mean the actual strategy and the people making the individual strategic decisions, not the party itself. The party will continue to exist, and it might even seem on its face like basically the same party with the same values. Except the values that the Republican Party espouses have nothing to do with the values of the actual, like, people making decisions in the party. People making decisions in the party value a bunch of stuff that they think, and somewhat rightly so, would be political suicide to say out loud. That's why, like, Trump has, people have, like, talked shit at Trump because he is incapable of not saying the quiet part out loud. But the problem with that line of thinking that Trump is making a mistake by saying the quiet part out loud, is, so you're saying that you knew all along that these people were basically fascists, and you did nothing, right? Like, that's what you're basically admitting when you say he's saying the quiet part out loud. You know that the Republicans are literally running on fascist, anti-democratic policies, but you don't really call them out on that because you're worried that they have plausible deniability. Well, the issue with doing that is that means that they can explicitly pursue fascist ends, and there's no counter argument. There's nobody saying, hey, maybe we should stop doing the fascist stuff. I sincerely believe that in liberal capitalist democracies, fascism is almost an inevitability. And it's going to arise in the most powerful of those democracies. Like, it is going to arise in an extremely powerful state that the capitalists think that they can use. And they're just going to go, oh, it's no big deal, right? Like, okay, so, Trump wants to fucking initiate a coup. Well, he hasn't succeeded, so since he hasn't succeeded, we don't have to worry about it because he's too incompetent to do a Hitler, ignoring completely how completely incompetent Hitler was, because Hitler was completely fucking incompetent. So, oh, this guy's surrendering to the void. Oh, that's fun. Okay, well, you have fun with that, I guess. Can we just leave? This is kind of funny. I don't think I've ever... Oh, it actually ended eventually. I thought that it just wouldn't end. Let's see here. So anyway, we're in a dangerous spot right now. There's a lot of systems that are, in peril. I'm probably going to upload this to YouTube actually as well. This just live stream of just me fucking around. And if anyone has any questions for me in the comments, I am happy to try to answer some questions. I've been just kind of rambling about random, like nonsense because, it's been a stressful year, and I feel like I have seen no evidence that the sort of like established powers that be are taking the dangerous situation that we are in seriously enough. And it concerns me dramatically. It concerns me heavily that we have what is functionally speaking, not functionally, we have a fascist coup in the works right now. That's what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's trying to have a coup. He's trying to have his coup and eat it too. That's what he's trying to do. And the fact that a large segment of the population believes that he's the one who's the victim of the coup is a huge problem. Like, that is a big, big problem, that he has a huge base of power that actually believes his bullshit. But I would say almost as dangerous is the fact that even now, even when things have gotten to this point, if you look at, like, most of the fucking liberals and most of the, like, the media and most of the peeps, they're still not really taking it that seriously. They're not treating it as an actual existential threat to the democracy in a meaningful way. They just aren't, because they don't believe that it is. I think a lot of these people legitimately think that Donald Trump is actually too incompetent to successfully do a coup. And right now, Donald Trump is in the process of replacing cabinet members with people who are willing to do what he wants. But he just lost the election. What could he possibly want? Well, he's saying it already. He's been saying it this whole time. He wants to stay president. He's not going to accept the results of the election. And the only way that he's going to be forced to accept the results of the election is if he's unsuccessful in his coup attempt. That's all that we can hope for. Not that he's going to see the light, or that, some other people are going to talk sense into him. He's not doing nonsense right now. He's not doing a nonsense. He's doing a fascism. They're different things. He's doing something that is in his strategic interest. He doesn't want to go back to being a bankrupt former, millionaire, right? That's not what he wants. He wants to be the most powerful person in the world. And he's going to do everything that he can to stay in power indefinitely. And even if he loses, and by loses I don't mean loses on some like electoral level. He lost electorally. Even if he does not succeed at his stated objective of accomplishing a coup, he's already destroyed the very concept of American democracy. Because his voting base believes him. They believe him when he says, "Don't listen to your lying eyes, listen to me instead." And not a good sign. It's a very bad sign. It's a worse sign when, like, he's got so many, you know, he's got so many followers with guns. But it's a bad sign just generally. What is going on here? Oh. So there's, in the middle of this like thing, there's this other person here. I was like looking at this, I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't remember this part very well. All right. Dune Bar. So anyway, yeah. So it's a dangerous situation right now. But when we were thinking about like the robustness of a system, like it's important that you put into place protections for the system itself. So Singapore has some of the most like stringent corruption protections in the entire world, right? And as a direct result of that, Singapore has some of the least corruption in the world, right? The Singapore government is one of the least corrupt governments in the world. Like, you look at the way that they run the country, it is really obvious. Like, holy shit. When the government of Singapore does a thing, people expect to see the results of that thing and have the results of that thing be what the government said they're going to be. That's what they expect. If the government does a thing and it doesn't have the expected results, people get very angry. People get very angry in Singapore when things don't work the way that they're supposed to do. When the infrastructure in Singapore sucks, people hate it. When a private company does something stupid in Singapore, oh, people bitch at the government all about that. People expect the government to do competent things and to ensure that things are done competently in the country. And Singapore is simultaneously a country that has one of the best, like, sort of like ratios of like basically how much of the economy is represented by the poorest people in the economy, right? It has one of the highest amounts of the most poor people in the country contributing. Because when you look at, one of the things that's weird, so like you look at, if you go to like Norway and shit like that, and this is just depressing. When you go to Norway, you still see like legit homeless people out in winter in fucking Norway begging. And it's like, oh my god. In Singapore, you do still have beggars, and I probably talked about this on stream before, but I'm going to talk about it a little more. You still have beggars, but the panhandlers here, it's an actual profession, and it requires a license. And all of the licensed panhandlers here, because of the specifics of the dynamics of how it is handled, make at least $1,500 a month. Okay? That is the baseline minimum salary that someone is going to make as a beggar in Singapore. Now, there's reasons that they've done it. I don't necessarily agree with the way that they've implemented all of that 100%. But the other thing is that all of those people have homes. There are some homeless people in Singapore, but it is a very small portion of the overall population. People who are actually homeless are generally homeless for complicated reasons that make it so that it's actually very hard to maintain exactly, like getting 100%, getting 100% homed is actually more complicated than you'd think because some people legitimately don't want to be. It's a very tiny minority. It's not a major thing. Most of the problems with that kind of stuff come down to inefficiencies, and I would guess that most of the homelessness that does exist in Singapore is probably down to inefficiencies of some sort in the way that they handle things, etc., etc. But that's beyond the scope of this because I would have to look into that. It's a relatively minor problem in Singapore, but it's a problem everywhere in the sense that everyone has to deal with it. But the big difference is that in Singapore, all those panhandlers are sitting in air-conditioned fucking MRT stations, and the people in Norway who are panhandling are doing it outside of grocery stores before getting like shooed away by the owner to go who the fuck knows where, right? Like all of the panhandlers in Singapore, they have a specific place that has been designated to them as their panhandling location, right? And they're usually just like musicians. Usually they're playing like the piano or something and singing or doing whatever, right? And the reasons why this exists is complicated. A lot of these people are blind or have some other really major physical disability, and like should you just give them disability? Like the way that they've set it up, they've jerry-rigged a contraption that gets them a decent salary and is doing way better than what we have in America. It's doing better than what we've got in America. Like if you look at any of the numbers, they're doing a better job. So is there room for improvement? Always. And Singapore is far from a perfect country. But the issue is that I look at Singapore and I'm like, wow, there's some major problems that we should fix here. But then I look at literally anywhere else and I'm like, oh my God, why? Like, why is this the thing that you still have, right? Like even in like the Norse countries that the Americans love to like jack off over so much, because the pretending that the Norse countries are like some platonic ideal when they still have fucking kings is a little weird on its face. But they're also just okay. They're not that great. It's like you're setting the bar so low. Set the bar higher. But people don't want to set the bar higher because setting the bar higher involves giving more power to the government to do shit, right? People want to pretend that you don't need to do anything to get better results, right? So they'll be like, oh, look, some random European country that has, a monolingual, monocultural, student body performed almost as well as all of those Asian countries. We should follow their example. And it's like, you can't. You're America. You can't follow the example of a monolingual, like, monocultural background and expect good results. But you know what you can? You can follow the results that Singapore has, because Singapore has 4 different languages that are really common that people speak when they come into school, and they find a way to get everyone speaking English and everyone working in the language of instruction within the first few years, and really just plowing ahead with a population of people that is like the best educated people in the world now, right? And it's things seem like they're a lot harder than they actually are because people refuse to look east of fucking Germany. I guess actually Norway and Sweden are both east of Germany. Okay, they refuse to look further east than Sweden to steal ideas. Because they think that fundamentally, there's just something fundamental about Asian people that just makes them better. This is the problem with racism. This is legitimately the problem with racism. Singaporeans are just people. Okay? They're not innately smarter. They're not innately more docile. They're certainly not innately more docile. They're not innately more nice. They're definitely not that. They are just a product of their society. And maybe when we, as Westerners, as people who look like me, are trying to figure out what we should do to get better results, we should be looking at people that have demographic similarities to our own. So if you're New York and you have a multinational upbringing, like you have a bunch of people who are like immigrants who come from a different from a non-English speaking household, maybe pay more attention to Singapore and less attention to Denmark, because you can't copy what Denmark did because Denmark has it on easy mode. But Singapore is on the same fucking difficulty as you. They have the same problem. They have the same problem because it is a problem. Multicultural upbringing is hard. It's hard to do education in that setting. And that doesn't mean that it's bad for society to be multicultural. It's good overall for society to be multicultural because while it's harder to do some educational things, right, it has huge rippling positive effects. It just does. It's like if you just stop being like reinforcing racism with every goddamn thing that you do as a government, and that's whether you're fucking on the left. They're not actually on the left. Leftist ideologies, like American ideology, is like you've got like the center right people, and that's the Democratic Party, and then you've got the fascist party. Like at this point, it's like so far gone. Like 20 years ago, people would joke about how far right American politics was, and it's like, okay, well, you've got like the like slightly right party, and then you've got like the really right wing party, and over my lifetime, the whole country's the Overton window has been dragged so far that you now have like, okay, so we have like center right wing austerity politicians who believe that everyone should pick themselves up by their bootstraps. And then you have the people who think that we don't need democracy. And those are our political parties. Yay! Fun fact, in some countries, it is actually illegal for a political party to be anti-democratic. So a party that exists, that has part of its platform as to be anti-democratic, is actually illegal, and that party would not be allowed to run. I don't know which countries, I just remember hearing about it. Now, that's complicated in some contexts, but it's not really complicated when it comes to democracy. Because if you can vote someone into office who then says that you can't have any more votes, you don't have a very robust system. And one of these days, I should have a nice little live stream where I just talk about robust systems and how to make them and how to identify them. I think I'm going to do that sometime soon. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end things here for now. I have ranted and raved for enough for today. I'm going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube. And, you know, if you would prefer that I not be talking about this shit because, like, you're scared and depressed and all that stuff, this is me doing self-care. I need to talk about this shit. I do apologize. I will be doing more like normal streams as well. But I will probably be trying to make more of this sort of stuff because it's just I just want to talk about what's going on, and I have a very unique experience as an American expat who lives in a country that is so demographically similar to America, or at least American cities, but is so different in terms of the way that everything is handled, and seems like they take all of the problems that America just doesn't seem to have an interest in solving, and just solving them, right? Like, American immigration policy is based on the fundamental conceit. This is true, by the way. This is the fundamental argument for immigration in America. On the one side, you have the people who think that immigrants are going to, like, rape their wives, basically. And if you want to be less... I don't even want to call it hyperbolic, because that's literally what probably the majority of that party believes. But if you want to be less, like, honest about it, the people who think that immigration is just inherently bad and that we shouldn't let any people into the country because they're isolationist bullshit or whatever, right? And then you have the people who think that we should just let everyone come into the country. Not even everyone, but when we get people into the country, they should always be part of the American dream. And I have nothing against the American dream conceptually. I like the idea of inviting people into your country to take part in your democracy and to basically empower your democracy. I think that immigration of that kind is good. But not all immigration is that. And not all immigration should be that. Because what I don't want is I don't want the American dream to be coming to America and then getting jobs off the back of a truck in South Florida, or coming to America and picking fucking raspberries for basically no money. That shouldn't be the American dream. But those are things that need to be done. And I think that it makes sense for them to be done by immigrants, but they shouldn't be immigrants who are intended to stay forever. They should be seasonal. And they're not going to overstay their visas, guys. It's fine. Right? If you actually have an appropriate setup in place and you have appropriate ways of handling this shit, like Indian workers don't just disappear into Singapore. It's not a thing. And obviously Singapore has a slightly easier situation in that regard because it's Singapore. But seasonal workers want to come work seasonally. But from an immigration perspective, that doesn't exist to the American system. The American immigration system has like a does not compute when it comes to seasonal low skill work. And the reason is because they want local black people doing those jobs. You didn't hear it here, but there's been a history of enslaving black people in America, and they keep doing it to this day. I didn't know that. Anyway, so there are institutional pressures to prevent basically having the low tier jobs. I do that. Low tier jobs be done by seasonal foreigners because they want to keep both white people and black people poor. They want to keep everyone that lives there poor. So there you go. Yay! So that's the end of this stream. So hopefully some people got some enjoyment or catharsis or just some little tidbits of knowledge from the random bullshit that I've been talking about. You know, we're in a dangerous position right now, but legitimately we're in a less dangerous position than we were in 2 weeks ago. I think that there's still very much the chance that the fascist coup is successful. I don't know I wouldn't place odds on it now. Like, I don't know what the odds are. And we have the ability to do better. We can. As a species, we can do better. And I don't say that in some like hoity-toity, like, you know, we can be better people bullshit. No. We can be the same stupid, ignorant, sometimes dickish, sometimes kind of nice, moronic human beings that we always have been. But if we get good, robust systems in place to curb the damage that we can do with our worst vices and to maximize the benefit that we can do with our best impulses, and to create a gravitational pull where if we just sometimes do nice things and sometimes do bad things, then gravitationally we get a better world. We can create systems like that. It's not actually that hard. And I'm going to try to talk a little bit more about that kind of stuff in the future. I might start writing out some more essays. I might start reading through some of my old essays so that I can sort of like just throw it into the void, especially as we're approaching the expansion. But yeah, so that's going to be it for right now. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Later, folks.